Welcome back. This is Mike Patagliano, the Startup Evangelist, and this is episode 11, the 25 questions founders should answer before they pitch. Over the years, I've developed these questions based on my interaction with founders and their readiness to pitch. Um, the majority have immediately focused on their solution. They tell me why it's great. Typically, they've overhyped the solution and they fail to or neglect to rationalize the business side of this new venture. Some even have said they've used the Sequoia or similar pitch deck templates that are available, and they haven't had any success getting a response from the venture capitalist. What a founder needs to understand is that if you're reaching out to the VC or a VC, for every 1,000 pitch decks they get, they only schedule 100 meetings. That's a 90% failure rate. And out of those 100 meetings, they typically only invest in 10 companies. It's a 99% failure rate from the initial 1,000 that have started. It's even worse in applying to an accelerator like Y Combinator. They typically accept 1 to 1.5% of the applicants to be a part of their class. And they often have upwards of 20 or 30,000 applicants for each class. The failure rates are astronomical. In fact, the 1 and 1.5% range is the equivalent of the college basketball population or the college basketball player population that gets drafted into the NBA. These individuals train for years for the opportunity to make it into the NBA, and yet founders think that they can come up with an idea that is interesting, not rationalize the business part of it, and submit to individuals that are using other people's money to invest and expect a tremendous return and think that they're just going to skate by is oftentimes the feeling that I'm left with after these initial conversations. Your team requires significant preparation to have success in this field. And these 25 questions will help you do that. So let's get to the PowerPoint. As I have said before, everything starts with the problem. You have to clearly define your problem. Everything radiates outward from the problem. The solution that you select radiates outward. The marketing messaging that you use radiates from the problem. Your website radiates from the problem. Your sales enablement strategy, your selling messaging, your conversations with customers. Everything starts with the problem. If you have not clearly defined it, if you focus exclusively on the solution, it's like taking a trip. If you have ever used a map without understanding where you're starting from and you expect to get to a destination, it can be accomplished, but is just a really difficult task. The next question is really, why is your solution different from the existing competitors or alternative solutions? This requires the founding team to do a detailed competitive analysis. I don't think you can and just superficially skate by on this one and not expect to have the investor really drill into why are you different in this marketplace. The next question ties into that is why are you better than the competitors and the alternatives that are out there. Accomplishing this requires that you spend significant amount of time with potential buyers and ask them, how are they viewing your solution? Would they consider your solution a must-have, a nice-to-have, or just interesting technology? You can rest assured investors, if they have head down the path of doing due diligence with you, are going to talk to their contacts in this marketplace and ask them what they think of your solution. So do it before an investor does it, and be able to answer their questions honestly and truthfully. The fourth piece of it is, what are the enhanced buyer outcomes that are going to be delivered by your solution? I call these four the four foundational questions. Everything starts from these four: the problem, how are you different, how are you better, and then quantifying what are the outcomes that your buyer is going to achieve. If you can't do these four, you are not close to being ready to pitch. The next piece of this problem set is, how big is your total addressable market? It is not okay to say I'm going to create a security solution, so therefore the entire security spend that enterprises use, or enterprises spend in a calendar year, is my total addressable market. You have to figure out, and we will have I will have a specific video on how to calculate the total addressable market. What do you have to what do you have to do? But start researching this now if you're close to, or if you think you're close to pitching. This is a very critical part of it that the investor is going to want to make sure you understand. And what do you anticipate charging for the solution? You just can't say, I have this grand solution, and everybody in the enterprise or the global 5,000 marketplace is going to buy it. Well, what are you going to charge for it? Are you going to give it away free? Are you going to use a product-led growth strategy? Are you going to charge $30 for it? Are you going to charge $100,000 a year for it? This is part of this rationalization of the business problems. This is one of the biggest challenges that engineers, when they start companies, fail to address. They've not had customer-facing sales experience. They may not know a lot of customers personally, and so how they go about determining pricing. And this isn't anything that you're locking yourself into. This is a range. I mean, you can tell somebody, we think we're going to charge between, you know, $30,000 and $100,000 a year, or we're going to give this version away for free, and we're going to charge a support contract. It's the maturity of the management team that the investor is looking for, not necessarily the literal answer to the question. And how does your proposed price compare to alternative solutions? Again, unless you are bringing something in that's going to have a first mover advantage, you are competing in a marketplace with other vendors that are not going to give up their market share easily. So you need to understand what you are bringing to the table. Again, what are the enhanced buyer outcomes that your competitive solutions do not have, that are going to distinguish you in both the marketplace overall and an individual buyer's eyes. I recommend that you speak to 10 to 25 potential buyers to validate and to prioritize these enhanced buyer outcomes in order of importance. By the way, I should have said the bullets that I've got in red are absolutely critical. You cannot create superficial answers to these bullets. You have to do the research. And can your intellectual property be easily duplicated? This is one of the issues that new ventures that are using AI to vibe code have to address. You can you can create and you can have AI create an application in minutes now that would have taken an initial team maybe 3 or 4 months to create a proof of concept or a prototype, and maybe a couple $100,000. Now it can be done in hours through AI. But if you can do it in hours, that means somebody else can do it in hours. So how are you protecting your intellectual property? These buyers that you speak to, these hopefully will be the early adopters that buy your solution, and asking them now, will they provide a letter of a commitment, a letter of intent? Again, it's one thing to go to an investor and say, I've got a great solution. I haven't talked to anybody about it. And it's another thing to go to an investor and say, we have a great solution. We've talked to 25 potential buyers, and 20 of them have given us letters of intent or letters of interest, some documentation of commitment on the buyer's part to work with this team moving forward. How quickly does a potential buyer grasp the impact on the organization? It is a wonderful experience when you are in front of a buyer and they turn around, you're 2 minutes into a 10-minute pitch, and they immediately start selling for you. They turn around and, excuse me, they turn around and say, my team will see, the following benefits. This will be a tremendous benefit to our corporation. Whatever language that they use to start selling the solution back to you means that the buyers have truly internalized these enhanced outcomes and you're on the right path. You also have to ask the buyer if they see any implementation or downside risk. Um, this is especially important in enterprise solutions where you may be looking to replace an existing tech stack within the buyer's organization. And so making sure that you can quantify how buyers are reacting to your solution means you have to ask these kinds of difficult questions and listen to what the buyers have to say, and then ultimately figure out, can you work out um, code or solutions that can mitigate this risk and reduce the risk from the buyer's perception. And I mentioned this earlier. Does your solution provide a first mover advantage? Are you, if you remember in my earlier videos, I used the concept of a people, process, and technology chain. Some solutions, you're replacing the technology in existing chain. In other solutions, you're introducing a technology that's going to enhance the performance of that people, process, and technology chain. That's called a first mover advantage. If you have a first mover advantage, point it out. Investors are going to want to know that. They're going to want you to quantify why you have this advantage. Have your buyers or your potential buyers that you've spoken to, have they acknowledged this advantage? This is a really significant piece of data for an investor to evaluate a potential founding team. Have the founders developed a prototype or a proof of concept to reduce investor risk? If you go in with a clean sheet of paper, you're asking the investor to absorb the risk. Now, in some cases, it may require a substantial multi-million-dollar investment to um, complete a proof of concept or complete a prototype. Investors will understand that, and investors will understand if you are developing a deep technology solution. But if you're advocating for a new piece of software, a new AI chatbot, a new AI agent, and all you're going in with is a PowerPoint and a smile, you're in that approach, you're asking the investor to absorb all of the risk. I've identified that in an earlier video as an investor red flag. Again, working with the business aspect and conversations with investors, Have you developed the uses of capital model? How much money are you going to require? Have you identified it by category, by month? And what will be the outcome of this ask, of this investment ask? If you need $1 million, what will be the outcome of that $1 million? Will you finish your solution in 6 months and have a 6 month runway to, add some customer support people and get some initial customers? Or are you asking for $1 million and in that final month where the $1 million is spent is when you're going to complete the tasks identified in the uses of capital? Again, rationalizing the business side of this. Um, to go along with the financial side of the previous question, a project plan, a detailed project plan by phase that shows why you're requesting the capital and how you're going to develop this solution over time, which is different than the uses of capital, which is the financial tracking. The project plan is the technical tracking of developing whatever the outcome is of this investment round. And are there any external dependencies to success of the venture? For example, I've talked to founding teams that are advocating for an AI solution, and when I ask them, "Hey, it looks very interesting. Who's going to develop the AI piece of this solution?" "Oh, well, as soon as we get money, we'll hire that person." Well, how do you know how long it's going to take if you never developed an AI solution before? How can you develop a by month category uses of capital model? How can you develop a project plan? Um, those are the questions that become obvious when you've been an investor for a while. And when asked, the founders typically respond by looking like a deer caught in headlights. Not a good look to have when you're in front of an investor and you're asking and you're competing against other world-class founding teams that have maybe rationalized their business model better than you have. And quite simply, have the co-founders ever developed an enterprise class commercial solution? If you haven't, if you have a interesting idea, but you have never developed an enterprise class commercial solution before, you are going to set off red flags with investors. I personally was in that boat. I had never developed one before, and I came to the conclusion that I had to take on a financial founder and have a financial co-founder and give up a substantial piece of equity to that co-founder for the capital to develop our first solution, our first version of the solution, so we could then go out and compete into the marketplace. My company would have never gotten off the ground without it. Without it, I was an experienced professional in that particular market who had a good understanding, but had never developed a commercial solution before and didn't know what was in front of me. I wouldn't have ever been funded unless I took on a co-founder, a financial co-founder who took the risk, excuse me, of that very first investment. Moving off to the buyer again. Who was the economic buyer? What department? I was in a conversation once where a solution was proposed, and I didn't quite understand the solution. And when I asked, well, who buys this? Who makes this decision? The individual who was proposing the solution didn't have an answer. Not a good position to be in. I was a part of that founding team, and the solution wasn't rationalized. It was just envisioned as, boy, this is a cool solution, not something that somebody had had a conversation with a number of buyers and they've said, yes, we have that problem. Cool solutions don't get funded. So understand who the buyer is, make sure you're talking to those buyers and they are confirming that your solution is a must-have technology to help their departments and companies run better. How much will a buyer reasonably pay for the enhanced outcomes? Ask. Don't guess. Don't have the conversation with your founders. Ask. I've had some, founders say, we want so much per person. Well, they will then go out into the marketplace, and the first statement out of a potential buyer's mouth is, yeah, we would never pay that. So you're already starting from an adversarial point. The buyer is not recognizing that your enhanced outcomes are worth the price that you're paying. And to continue with the discussion, you immediately have to say, oh, but don't worry about that. We'll dramatically lower the price and get it to the point where you find substantial value. You have to do that beforehand. You have to walk into that conversation knowing that your enhanced outcomes can be justified to the buyer. And, in a given reasonable give and take conversation, that charge or what they're going to have to they use their company's money for is going to be of value to them over time. Does the founding team have the necessary technical and business skills to execute the vision? You are going to be evaluated in front of every investor. Your team is going to be evaluated. Every statement that you make is going to be evaluated. Every gap in your pitch deck is going to be evaluated. Every question you cannot answer is going to be evaluated against the other 25,000 that have applied to Y Combinator, against the other 1,000 pitch decks that the venture capitalist has received. You have to exhibit the necessary technical and business skills to execute this vision. Otherwise, it is a much greater probability that you will never hear back from the venture capitalist to propose and pitch your idea and obtain funding. What sales model are you going to use to make a profit? Ultimately, you have to make a profit. So they're going to ask you, how are you much you were going to charge for this? How are you going to sell this into the marketplace? Again, if you're an engineer and you've never faced that problem before, you really should find a good advisor who is, on a fractional basis, helping your company, helping your founding team to answer these kinds of questions. It's something that I do all the time and have clients to this day that I still work with on a fractional basis. There are great advisors out there that will help you and not charge you an arm and a leg to help get the company off the ground. And do any of the founders have professional customer-facing sales or marketing experience? This is something you're going to have to describe. If you have a great solution to a problem that buyers acknowledge, the investor will recognize and not mark you down for having no customer-facing sales and marketing experience, but they will start to help you rationalize the kind of marketing and sales individuals you need to add to your team, when they should be added, and they will work with you on that. Your advisors will work with you on that, but you have to recognize that this is a weakness within the founding team. You have to acknowledge it, and then you ask, basically present your plan. This is what we're going to do to help the founding team make this problem go away over time. It's often called a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weakness, opportunities. Oh God, I can't remember what the T stands for. Excuse me, I'm not going to stop this video because I'm so far into it. There will be a separate video on SWOT analysis. strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. I can't remember the T. Again, my apologies. Do a superficial SWOT analysis. If you're missing if you're building an AI solution and you're missing the AI threats, that's it. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's the competitive side of this problem. So do a superficial SWOT analysis to understand where you stand in the marketplace. It's being done by the investor when they speak to you, so you might as well do it beforehand and have that understanding. You have to, however, be self-aware when you complete these kinds of analysis and really be honest with yourself and the founding team as to where you stand. Having a great solution isn't enough. You're building a business, not just a solution. It's not an engineering project. So those are the 25 questions. My apologies for that confusion on the SWOT analysis. I look like a knucklehead on that one. It happens. Nothing I can do at this point in time. But again, I wish you the best with this. We are about halfway through actually about a third of the way through the foundational concept section of the videos that we're going to create. I've got about 30 plus videos that are in the foundational concepts, and then we'll move forward to the other 15 stages that you're going to have to pass through to make this business successful. But it's critical. You have to get the first meeting with an investor. Otherwise, you're just dead at that point in time. And these 25 questions will help you get there. I hope you enjoy the video. Please subscribe to the channel, like and share, and enjoy the weekend, everybody.